It's time again to register for the Photo Imaging Connect conference at the Rio Hotel, March 1st and 2nd, 2026. Go to www.photoimagingconnect.com for more information on the program and take advantage of the early bird pricing. Hi, in this week's episode of the Dead Pixel Society podcast, we're doing something different this week. We're revisiting a past speaker named Stuart MacDonald, who is also the keynote speaker in the upcoming Photo Imaging Connect conference, March 1st and 2nd at the Rio in Las Vegas. Here's to do a preview of his keynote presentation, and I think you'll find it very interesting. For more information on Photo Imaging Connect and to register today, go to www.photoimagingconnect.com.
Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Peugeot. The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Media Clip, Advertech Printing, and IP Labs.
Hello again, and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm your host, Gary Peugeot, and today we're joined by Stuart MacDonald, who is an old friend of mine going back, I don't want to say how many years, but we'll say 40. And Stuart's going to be sharing to us a lot of information about lean principles. But first, Stu, let's first talk about your career, because it's a multivaried and different one than most people.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to this prestigious podcast. It's very nice to be here. 40 years. It makes us sound older than what we really are. But,
exactly. We're young at heart.
Yeah. So my career is, it's interesting. It started where, in the college years, I had worked my way up as a magician and then put myself through college with it. And then I went on tour. Mm-hmm. We toured for like 15 years and decided, we want to get off the road. So we started this little haunted house, and it turned out to be one of the largest in the country. It was like 20,000 square feet. And this is before haunted houses were a big thing.
Right.
And we did that for 17 years. And then, the economy started bottoming out in 2008. And so I got out of that. Went back to college, the Adrian College, where we both met, and went into the corporate world and started working at television stations, and then ended up at large manufacturing headquarters on the west side of the state. Mm-hmm. They make appliances. I won't say who, but they're pretty big deal. Mm-hmm.
And you also, you ran your own business. You did video. You had a video company. You did.
Oh yeah, forgot about that. Yeah,
you did documentaries. You were doing a lot of different things.
Yeah, I also had a company called Boomerang Studios, and we did like 400 TV commercials, a lot of regional and local. But then the real breakout that we had was a documentary called "I Want to Look Like That Guy." Mm-hmm. And it got the attention of Arnold Schwarzenegger and his whole group of people, and it just went, it skyrocketed. So I'm well known in the bodybuilding community still for something that I made in 2009. Yeah. And so you can look that up. It's some, people put it on the internet for free now. So it's thousands of links to it, but
I think I've got a copy of it here somewhere. I'm sure I bought the DVD at some point. And also, you kind of didn't do the magician thing for years, and then a few years ago you got back into it and you received some national and international acclaim.
Yeah, and this is where the story gets interesting and latches on to the topic we're going to talk about. While I was working with this manufacturer, I was like, man, I really was depressed. I didn't feel whole. And I was like, well, when did I feel really good about myself? And it was when I was just getting started out in magic as a competitive magician, because that's how you kind of go up through the ranks and get noticed by producers. But the only way to do that at an older age is to be in the world championships, and you have to qualify for that. And my first attempt, I basically face planted in front of everybody in the industry. And I mean, laughing stock. I mean, this guy was terrible.
Can you explain a little bit about competitive magic? I mean, because that's a very narrow niche that most people probably aren't even exposed to or are even aware of.
No, they're not, but it will be. There's a very famous London documentary company that has contacted me and a bunch of other magicians who compete in the world championships. They're doing a documentary about it.
Okay.
So it will be mainstream in the near future. However, a lot of people don't know what this competition is, and they held it every 3 years in a different country.
Mm-hmm.
And
the Olympics of Magic, essentially.
It's called FISM, the Federation of International Magicians Society, and it's been around for like 85 years. And when you say it's competitive, I mean, in Europe, it's how you make or break your career.
Mm-hmm.
It's very serious, and especially in Asia, it has gotten so big that government states will sponsor these magicians, and they will come back as like Olympic heroes.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And it's really fascinating. I mean, this isn't like, the magic that you see a magician pulling out the quarter behind the ear. I mean, this is sophisticated stuff. Just to give you an idea how sophisticated, there was a guy from Italy who did his act and with water. That was his theme. He was controlling water. Mm-hmm. And at the end, he became a hologram of water, and just the water stopped. And he disappeared.
Wow.
And he didn't even come close to placing.
Wow. Yeah. And so you decide you need a challenge in your life, and you get back into it, and you face plant. You do not succeed. So what's your thought process then? Because you're thinking, maybe I don't have it anymore, right?
Yeah. I'm old school, right? So what ended up happening is I remembered my training at this manufacturing company that they trained us in lean principles and continuous improvement. And I'm like,
and what does lean mean for those who don't know?
Well, lean isn't necessarily an acronym.
Okay, because I see it as an acronym around.
Yeah, you can. It has a lot of meanings with different people, but basically what it is, it's a composite of principles that are designed to eliminate waste and create efficiency.
Okay.
And that's what lean is. And the continuous improvement part is that you have a closed loop system where you are constantly leaning out, putting new efficiencies in. So that's what
so you decided that you were going to, from the training you had at this large company, that you were going to apply these principles to your magic act.
Yeah, of all things, right? I'm like, I didn't know how to really do it, but the more I thought about it, lean principles have a lot of similarity to theatrical principles. And when I'm talking about the lean principles, I'm not talking about black belt, right? I'm talking about just the very basics. So I would take, like, direct observation would be director. And andon pull would be the audience reaction. Either they're falling asleep, not paying attention, that means there's something wrong. So I would take these principles and I would match them with theater principles. Okay. And it made it really easy. And I started looking at my act a little differently. And
now, for those who have not seen your act, and I do recommend folks go on the tubes and, Google Stuart MacDonald. You can find a lot of his material there. But just briefly talk about the scenario that you were working on, that you apply these principles to, the kind of the magician storyline. You had a story to it.
Yeah. At first, there was no story. It was just a mirror. And this mirror duplicated things. And
the accidental magician, I think. Unintentional magician. Okay. Yeah.
So I ended up, after I face planted this magician whose name is Gene Anderson, who is a retired and a very famous magician. And he did magic throughout his entire career at Dow Chemical, but he's a PhD in chemical research. And he took me aside. He said, "Stuart, I want a story. Because nobody else is telling a story. Give us a story." So I started thinking a lot about it, and I contacted a guy who came from Adrian High School, and went through the Croswell Opera House Theater that was in our hometown. And the dude ended up being one of the go-to production designers for Broadway. And he nominated for a Tony for creating Newsies. The whole production design of Newsies was his. And he just finished with Spielberg doing West Side Story, the movie. So he's a pretty big deal. And I found him on Facebook and I said, hey, this is Stuart MacDonald. I want to be in the World Championships of Magic. It's like really struggling. Can you help me out? Here's a video. Just give me some tips and I'll be out of your hair. And he said, I want you to call me. I'm like, what? So he gave me a call and he said, Stuart, when I was in the 5th grade, you came to my elementary school. You brought me up on stage and you did the cut and restored rope trick for me. He said, you are the person who introduced me to theater. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
And he said, yeah, I want to pay this back. You don't have to pay me. I really want to do this for you. And I'm like, well, I have 2 years before the qualifier for Busan, South Korea. And he's like, okay, well, let's look at the act. And so he looked it over and he started asking questions, and he used a technique that he didn't know was lean, but I did. It's called 5Y. He just kept on asking me, why are you doing this? And why are you doing that? Getting into my thought process. And I was learning that my thought process had no direction, no meaning behind it. And it wasn't until he said the color of the cloth that's covering this mirror that's duplicating things. Why is it paisley? He said, it looks like an old carpet bag. And I go, well, it just looked old to me. And he goes, well, that's not good enough. And he said, what if it was just a simple drop cloth? And then he said, what if it was, maybe this whole thing takes place in an attic? And as soon as he said, and then he said, it might even be haunted. And as soon as he said that, the whole thing played in my head. All the whole character, it all came into place. And then from there, I kept on iterating the act. Now this is 2015. And I assembled a team and I kept on sending out these videos and to my team, just my team only. And they comprised of people from all different walks of life. And so I was getting opinions from magicians. I was getting opinions from engineers. I was getting opinions from just general people and theater directors. And everybody contributed in a different way.
Right.
So this technique is process mapping. And it's trying to figure out, I need data, right? I can't do a Kaizen event of myself. I mean, I know everything that I'm doing.
Right.
Doing wrong.
Right. Exactly. Or why you're doing it. Right.
Yeah. The whole why behind it all. So once I started establishing the why and started answering more questions, and the thing that I found is that, when you think of lean, it's a relationship between you and your customer.
Right. So
you want to put as few steps between you and your customer, and the customer can be anything. Like, for instance, if you have a factory, you have to have your customer is your supplier.
Right. So
if you have too many barriers and too many toll gates between you and that buyer, there's a lot of mistakes that can happen. So you want to, so I looked at my audience in the same way. I need as few steps as possible to get my story to them, without them trying to figure it all out in their head. And it's like, why is he doing that? I don't want the audience to be thinking more questions. I want them to be lost in it.
Right. So you don't want to create a premise where they're starting to think about, well, that's a cool haunted house. Wonder where that is. And because they're not paying attention to your story.
Yeah, you don't want them to think of, who is this guy? Why is he here? It doesn't matter why I'm there.
Right.
It should, that question is answered differently in everybody's head.
Right.
And then, every once in a while you get a magician. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Why do you come on stage with a candelabra? It doesn't make any sense to me. Who are you? Why are you there? And I'm like, well, I have 9 minutes and I'm not speaking. I can be anywhere. Right. But obviously I'm in a room that I can't see until I illuminate it. And every haunted house movie from the 50s and 40s always has that scenario.
Right.
Yeah. So as we started digging into the storyline, we started to have to go into waste management.
Okay.
Because I had a lot of, when you're putting a story together, you have lots of plots.
Right.
And you have to figure out which plot is going to stick the best.
Right. Because you had a hard stop on this.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have a lot of time for this presentation, for this competition. You had 9 minutes to do your whole act, right?
Yeah. And 10 minutes was a cutoff, but you don't want to get there.
Right.
Because then you're going to see a red light. Nobody wants to see a red light. And 5 minutes is your minimum. And all these other competitors are hitting the 5-6 minute mark. But my story is a little bit more complex. And so I had to add more and more explanation. And by doing that, it added more complexity. And so we had to use the TIMWOODS, which is the waste acronym. So time is the T part of it. The amount of time is that people are waiting for a trick to happen.
Right. How many, I don't want to call them illusions or tricks. I'm not sure what the actual nomenclature is, but how many were there in the final presentation? How many illusions did you have?
Well, in the competition, I can't even tell you how many, but it's a lot. It's more than 2 or 3. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of small things.
It's nonstop
to lead up to the mirror. Yeah. And now that it's not a competition act anymore, I've added even more elements and more skill that I wish I would have had time for before. So yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at, 100 different, visual effects and things. And
so getting back to what you were saying, you had a time element you had to work with. You had to figure out what to keep and what to throw away, all continuously, all during this time.
Yeah. Yes. And that was that part was difficult because you have to, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but
right.
You have to, what do they call it? Kill your darlings.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Just
because you like it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to advance the act or the show.
Right. So, when you think of the TIMWOODS thing, like T is transport, it's like I'm transporting my tricks from one part of the table to another. What am I bringing on stage? I'm transporting a candelabra on stage, and we had different forms of candelabras. At first it was a chamber pot candle. And we found out that after watching it over and over and over again, it's like it should be a candelabra. You want to illuminate a room. And candelabras are used for people that in scenarios where you don't know where you're going.
Right.
Chamber pot candle is just like, one candle, where you're going, you're going to go to do your business and then go back to bed.
Right.
You don't want to, candle is a lot different.
So you're even thinking of things that maybe at an instinctive level would make sense. And you didn't have to explain it. It just made sense.
Yeah. 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 Because it's interesting. What ended up happening is that when I went from a single candle to a candelabra, it created a lot of problems because it was easy to duplicate a single candle, but it wasn't spectacular.
Right.
But when you duplicate a candelabra, it was like it turned into a miracle. There's like, where the heck did that come from?
Right. And it increased the complexity of the illusion.
It did and it didn't. It's amazing how you can think your way out of a problem.
Okay.
When you are presented with something that you're like, how am I going to make this fit? And you just reverse engineer it.
Right.
And then the other part of the waste is the second one is the I, which is inventory. So inventory is, for me, inventory is as you could look at it as prop management. How many props am I bringing to the story? But it became more complex than that. Inventory became just, how do I transport this table and this mirror and all the parts and pieces, because it was becoming a pain to assemble and disassemble. Was 1,000 parts because it had to be less than 50 pounds. And oh my gosh, it was nuts. So I came up with a system where the table doesn't have any screws, nuts, or bolts. It's all caught together. And the mirror is all 1/4-inch bolts. So if I lose a bolt or whatever, it's easy to find a 1/4-inch. Yeah. You can do that visually.
Right. So you even extended these principles into the construction of everything.
100%. Yeah.
So it wasn't just the act, it was actually the construction of all the props and all of the various accoutrements you needed to even transport it. Because like you said, you had to take this thing to South Korea, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that was the goal, was to get it to South Korea.
Right. And the other part too is that, when you're in this world competition, is that you can't do any magic that's off the shelf. You have to invent the act. And
so you can't go to the Magic Castle place in Las Vegas and buy some off the shelf and get really good at it and try and compete.
No, can't do it. You'll be laughed off the stage. They will close the curtains on you.
Okay.
And that happened. Yeah, that created its own challenge because it gets you into 5S. And 5S is when you're prop building, you amass massive amounts of just junk everywhere, from servos to batteries to wire to coat hangers to you name it. There's tons of little things.
Well, don't shatter the illusion for me. I'm still thinking this is all magical.
It is, but it can become a nightmare because it's like you get an idea, right? And you need to find that tool to make that prop work. And if that tool is hidden underneath, like some project that you did a while ago, and you didn't put that tool back where it was,
right?
You're wasting precious time to find that one tool. And sometimes I'm like, I know I bought this prop. I know what I'm just gonna have to buy a new one. And then and
then you find it.
Yeah, then you find, and then you got two of them. But it's like it would be. You get to the point of time management where it's like it'll cost me less money to buy a new one of these things wherever it's lost than to try to find it. Right. So 5S became very important to me.
So explain it for the layman listening to this. What is 5S? What are
So 5S is everything in its place and a place for everything. That's the simplest way to put it. So if you imagine, and we've all seen this, a very anal retentive person in their garage, and they have an outline on the wall of every tool. So if the tool isn't put back, there's an outline. So instantly they know a tool is not where it's supposed to be. It's missing.
I'm that guy. I am that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And 5S can really be very effective when it's like you cannot close the door on your shop until that tool fills that spot.
Right.
Because you'll forget. Right. And so that's what 5S is. It's basic. And you can do that with your desk.
Right.
I've seen guys at work that they say, oh no, I said, where's your family photos? Where's your Christmas cards? He goes, oh no, I just have a laptop. I can sit down anywhere, and that's my office.
Right.
The guys that really know how to do it can really make their life a lot simpler if you 5S. Another way of 5S, right, is when you open up your junk drawer at home. What if your junk drawer looked like your silverware drawer? Right. It's like, well, that would make sense. Now,
unless your silverware drawer looks like your junk drawer, then there's a problem there.
Right. But it's called a junk drawer because it's not organized. It's just a repository.
Yeah, because it's the stuff you don't put in the other drawers, right?
Right. So it's not.
So you started this process in 2015. So when was the competition?
So the qualifying competition was in 2018.
So you had approximately 3 years to work this process. Did you do this the whole time, or was this,
I was doing minor competitions leading up to it and not getting anywhere. Then in March of 2018, I was accepted to be on Fool Us, the TV show.
Which features who?
Penn and Teller.
There's a national TV show on, I forgot, it was ABC or somebody like that.
It's on the CW and it's on YouTube. And so I was invited to be on the show. And if you stump Penn and Teller, then you get to work with them in Las Vegas.
And what does that mean, stumping them? They can't figure out what it is you did?
Right. That's the whole idea. That's the whole idea of being on their program. And if you don't stump them, it's like they compliment you. They say you did a really great job, and it's the best way I've ever seen that trick done. But we know that trick well, and so I went in there and I was like, I know that I'm gonna fool these guys because I invented this trick with this mirror, and I'll just use the word it's ballsy. What I do is very ballsy, and it's something that no magician has ever done before. And I'm like, okay, so let's give it a shot. So I do it, and they had no idea.
Right.
No idea.
Yeah. I've seen the segment because like you said, it's online. You can see it, and you can just, the looks on their face was, I wouldn't say it was stunned, but it was definitely, you can see their gears are working, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. And backstage I showed them how, and they were like, what?
You broke the code? You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, well, they're your idols, right? You want to give them a little love. So, yeah. So
you haven't even shown me, man.
Yeah. Well, you got to be a magician. So anyway, so I win, and there's these rumblings that are happening in the magic community. It's like Stuart MacDonald just fooled Penn and Teller. It's a pretty big deal. And now the competition is that summer, and
it had to be a big confidence boost for you, right?
It's a big confidence boost, and I thought, I'm going to win this thing.
And did you didn't sit on your laurels though? You still continue to refine the process, correct?
Oh yeah, I refined it even more. And so when the competition came around, it's in 2 phases. Phase 1 is you qualify for the Olympics of Magic, and then Phase 2 is the finals. Who gets to be the winner? Now, this was the time where the Society of American Magicians, which is the SAM, and the International Brotherhood of Magicians came together, and they called it the Combined Convention. And it was held in Louisville. And I was not a hopeful. They had Asian performers that were there, and it was going to be a very, very tight competition.
Now, give us an idea of the scale of the competition. How many competitors and how many people win?
Well, in the qualifiers, I can't remember how many competitors there were. It was a fair number. The only people from the Asian people were able to compete in the International Brotherhood of Magicians, but to qualify for the Olympics of Magic, you have to be from North America.
Okay.
Because they're in different sections. Right. I did my act, and I got a standing ovation, and I'm like, okay. But I made there was a major problem though that nobody knew about but me, but I was really upset. My mirror wasn't set properly, and it was ahead of my table rather than behind the table, and some people couldn't see, and I'm like, so I actually had to pick it up and set it back in front of the audience. And I'm like, damn it. But the act was so strong that it didn't matter. So then the evening show happens, and I knew something was up because they said, we want you to close the evening competition. They said, you can put your tickets in the box for the People's Choice Award. And there's 2,000 people in the audience, and everybody was telling me, Stu, your box, you can't get any more tickets in. Your box is jammed. They didn't even have to count them.
Right.
And so when the award ceremony started, Now, just think about this. I had face planted just in the last competition.
Right.
And so the expectation was he might be here.
Yeah.
I won everything. It blew the doors off of magic for me. I mean, I was a nothing, and all of a sudden everybody wanted a taste of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I had one more year to refine the act. You go to Korea, and the competition was solid. It was a lot of fun. And my only goal was just to qualify. It wasn't win. Winning was not part of it because it's very subjective and the competition is so crazy.
Right.
But I got in the top 10. And when you think of face planting and then you get in the top 10 and nobody from the Western Hemisphere was close to me.
Right.
I was like, okay. And I got a world tour out of it.
Mm-hmm. So where did the world tour take you?
Oh, where didn't it? I was getting so many offers I had to turn them down. I mean, I had offers to go to it's an island nation outside of Australia. But anyway, there to be on a TV show there. I was supposed to be on a TV show in Italy, but I ended up going to the UK, Italy, Sweden, Spain, China, and the entire Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, and
Must
then
have been really a hardship.
Right, it was. It's terrible. And then COVID.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
And there you go. So the reason why I wanted to have you on not only was to reconnect because we don't see each other often enough, but to really kind of bring this back home towards the idea of using these relatively mechanical or rigid principles to a creative process, right? I think that's something that a lot of people in the photo industry could benefit from, if they're doing like a photo shoot or if they're printing pictures, right? Or, doing all kinds of things. What are the top 3 things you think somebody should keep in mind as they apply these principles to a creative endeavor?
Yeah, creative endeavor. Well, first of all is get to know the principles first.
Right.
And just high level. I would say from a creative standpoint is waste elimination.
Mm-hmm.
Use the acronym Tim Woods. Just look it up. It's the definition is there for you. Tim Woods.
Mm-hmm.
I would apply that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I would apply is continuous improvement. I would find something that whenever you do a shoot, you ask yourself, what could I do? What one thing could I do differently that would make it better?
Right.
Just one tiny incremental thing. And what I did is whenever I would find something that I would improve upon, I'd have an empty jar, and then I'd have a full penny jar. And I would say improvement on the empty jar. Mm-hmm. So whenever you take an idea and you go, oh, okay, I had an improvement, you put it in the improvement jar. So now you can actually see progressively how many times you've improved something. So you're moving the needle, but you're watching it happen because you can see it and you can feel it.
And it's a visual cue. It's almost like you're rewarding yourself.
Yeah. Like before you walk out of the office, you go, oh yeah, that was an idea. And then you put it in there. Right. So yeah, small incremental changes, and then they become big changes.
Right.
And what I did with my act, to give you an idea of how powerful that is that I gave myself a 30-day window before I went on Penn Teller Fool Us. And I videotaped my act 100 times in 30 days with the idea that if I improved one thing, that would be a percentage point. Mm-hmm. So at the end of 30 days, my act would be 100% better than what it was.
Right.
Before. And it worked.
Mm-hmm. Now, the thing there I think is important is you had to kind of let go of the preconception of you had to be willing to change your story, right? To enhance the improvements. You had to be so wed to the story that, of the magician in the haunted house, and you had a preconceived notion it was going to do this, this, and this. because the improvements would change the story
or enhance it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And make it more and clarify it.
Mm-hmm.
So
but I notice with a lot of times with the creative people in particular, like they have their vision and they're going to lockstep, hold on to that vision like it's, gripping around, a snake trying in their garden, right? They're just not going to let that thing go. Right. And sometimes that can be very limiting.
It can be. It can be, because you could be holding on to the wrong idea when you think it's the right idea. So the third thing I would say is for photographers, 5S. Mm-hmm. You have so much gear, and if you don't have the gear in the right place, and you don't have a ritual for charging your batteries, have a ritual for your bag to make sure that you have the batteries, you have SD cards, there are so many things that if you leave one thing behind, you're screwed.
Right.
Or you're delayed.
Right.
So, that is something that I would say a photographer could really take to heart, is to have that in your bag of tricks.
Awesome. So, Stuart, it's been great catching up. Where can people go to find more information about you, your magic, and your lean presentations? You
go to my website, and if anything, just Google Stuart MacDonald Magician, and that's Stuart. And
MAC.
MAC, yes. It's Mac. But my website is stuartmacdonaldmagic.com. Pretty easy. And I'm easy to find if you type my name and then add the word magician. If you don't type my name, you'll get Stuart MacDonald the golfer and Stuart MacDonald the mountaineering guide.
Really nice. Did not know. Listen, to me, there's only one Stuart MacDonald. So you're it. So
yeah.
Well, thank you much. Great to see you again. And thanks again for being on the podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.